Right, in this week's AI news, one AI company reaches almost $1 trillion in value, Apple are trying to rebuild Siri, GitHub Copilot sends bills from $39 a month to over $750 a month. This is the first episode of the weekly AI news roundup. Let's get straight into the news. So, firstly, we have Anthropic. They're the geniuses behind Claude AI. Now, recently they raised $65 billion in a funding round and now values the company at $965 billion, nearly $1 trillion. That puts them ahead of OpenAI for the first time ever, which was sitting at $852 billion. So to put that into perspective, 3 months ago, Anthropic was valued at 380 billion. They've basically tripled their value in 90 days. Now that's pretty impressive. Now why does this matter beyond just being a big number? A few reasons. First, Anthropic also filed confidentially for an IPO this week, targeting a stock market listing as early as October 2026. So, Claude, the AI tool, might be publicly traded on the stock market within months. That's a pretty big deal. Secondly, and this is interesting if you actually use Claude yourself, the company said their run rate revenue crossed 47 billion this year, which is currently 5 times what it was in December. So people are genuinely using Claude to the scale that it's being valued at. People aren't just throwing money at it for the hype. Now, the race between Claude and ChatGPT has been going on for a little while now, and it's kind of seen in the last couple months a huge shift from users using ChatGPT and moving over to Claude. Now, myself has seen that a lot of people are switching due to the fact that Claude can take you a lot more seriously and kind of give you more correct information. Now, ChatGPT a lot of the time tries to be your friend, and it tries to, if you give it a point, it tries to make it seem like you're right even if you're not. It seems very opinionated, and it tries to keep the user kind of happy and correct, so it keeps using it. And I think people have just started to realize that, so they're moving over to Claude. And with that valuation, it is signaled that the market thinks that Claude is better in the long term. Now, whether that's true, we'll see. Now, when it comes to the race between ChatGPT and Claude, obviously it all depends whenever they're releasing their new models. So when OpenAI obviously release their next GPT model, I'm sure a lot of users will be going over to GPT. Now I feel like people will have a look to see if the model is any good, and if not, they will then probably switch back to Claude, or they'll stay onto ChatGPT. So in our next story, we have Apple's WWDC. As I'm recording this, the WWDC will be tomorrow, and it will be running from the 8th to the 12th of June, I believe. And we're going to be looking at hopefully some big kickoffs from Siri itself. So they're going to be looking at completely remodeling Siri. Now, we were promised a Siri change in 2024, but it never happened. They were then sued, but settled for 250 million. So there's a lot riding on what's going to happen tomorrow. The keynote is going to be presented by Tim Cook, the CEO, but this will be his last keynote, as he will be stepping down in September. So the new Siri should be getting its standalone app, and they are going to be using a licensed custom version of Google Gemini model, which they will be paying around $1 billion a year to power. So with the standalone app that they will be creating, it's going to be very similar to ChatGPT or Claude, where you're going to be able to type, speak, attach documents and images, and have a proper back and forth conversation with it. There are reports of a paid tier. I think it's make or break for this Siri standalone app is dependent on whether they hide everything behind the paid tier version. Now, if you can get a lot of the features through the free version of their standalone Siri app, then I think they'll be fine. But I think if they try and hide everything behind a paid tier, I think they're going to really struggle for users. Because if you can get some good features on the free tier, obviously there's over a billion Apple users, and I think they will be likely to download the Siri just out of kind of ease for them as it's straight onto your iPhone already, and I feel like people are already somewhat used to Siri, and I think they'll want to see the changes that is happening. So if Apple can actually deliver tomorrow, it will be pretty massive, I think. So I'll be watching that tomorrow, and I will hopefully be having a follow-up video on that later on this week. So for our third story, we're going to be going over to GitHub Copilot. Now they've had a bit of a disaster this week as at the 1st of June, they changed from their paid flat monthly fee of their lowest, I think, being $10 a month, and then their other plans being $39. And they have switched to token-based billing, meaning now you get charged based on how much you actually use it. Now, in theory, it does sound somewhat fair, but if you know how other AI models work, usually if there is token-based billing, it's usually very expensive. Now, in my personal cases, if I've ever seen a new AI or tried to use a new AI and there's token-based billing, within 20 minutes, you're already stuck behind some sort of paywall saying, oh, you need to pay £10 for 1,000 credits. That's not great. But with the GitHub Copilot, I don't think a lot of the developers got a lot of warning. So how bad actually has the change from the flat fee to the token-based billing been? Well, people have reported that their $39 a month flat fee has increased to upwards of over $750 a month. As you can see on screen, this is someone's just before the 1st of June hit. There was, I'm presuming this is some sort of calculator type thing, so they can see how much they're going to be paying when the usage-based billing activates. And this person, as you can see, went from $39 to $942. Now that is pretty crazy, I think, especially because they hadn't given their users a lot of notice on when this was going to be happening. And so the reason the numbers can get that high is something called agentic coding, where you let the AI run longer sessions and work through complex problems automatically. Those sessions burn through the tokens ridiculously fast, and under the old system that was fine because you'd already paid your flat fee. Now every token costs money. Now if you are using still the basic flat fee of the $10 or the $39, you still get the basic code completions. Those are still unlimited and don't cost extra credits. So if you are just using that for the autocomplete while you type, your bill won't change. However, if you're using it for the agentic coding, then your bill will probably massively increase. Now, it was inevitable, really, that they were going to do this. I feel like every AI model much prefers the usage-based billing, and whether that's greed or what, I'm not sure. But at the end of the day, you are essentially paying for them to use their electric and their water bill, to be able to use these AI models. Um, if you do use GitHub Copilot for anything beyond basic autocomplete, it's definitely worth checking your usage settings before your next bill lands, because that could be a big one. On a much brighter note, Zoom have released their new AI tool called ZoomMate. So if you're anyone who still uses Zooms for meetings or say no work meetings or whatever, this could be good for you. $20 a month, and it integrates directly into your live meeting and connects what gets decided in those meetings to the apps where the work actually happens. So things like Salesforce, Jira, and Slack. The standout feature is something called Complete, which takes your meeting notes and automatically turns them into polished documents or presentations. So in theory, the meeting ends and you've straight away got a finished write-up ready to go, and no one's had to do that manually. Now this can save companies a lot of time, even if it's just 20 minutes after it. I feel like for that $20 price tag, I think that's actually fairly good, and especially if you've got companies with a lot of people, I'm presuming they'll have some sort of enterprise kind of plan at some point, like most do. And if they don't, I feel like they're definitely missing out, and they should do. But I think this is a really good step forward in the way we use AI. I think adding tools to apps that people already know and already have been using instead of creating standalone apps is a much better thing to do. Now, that $20 price tag is pretty reasonable, and I think it's worth keeping an eye on. So that's the week in AI news. So just to recap, we have Anthropic nearly hitting £1 trillion or $1 trillion in valuation. Apple will be rebuilding Siri, and we'll hopefully be able to see that tomorrow. GitHub making a lot of developers very angry, and Zoom actually doing some good things for their meetings. It has been a big week, and next week is going to be even bigger with the Apple WWDC. I'll be reviewing that and hopefully having a video up on that. And this has been the first episode of the AI News Weekly Roundup. I'm going to try to do one of these every Sunday. So if you enjoyed, don't forget to like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video. Cheers.